People always talk about the moment their life changed, but they rarely mention the moment before. The precise, delicate second when the air tightens, when the world holds its breath, when something unseen approaches like a shadow rounding a corner. I felt that second the night of my cousin Nisha's engagement party, standing at the edge of the banquet hall with a champagne flute trembling slightly in my hand. I didn't know yet why the feeling came or what it was warning me about, but I felt the shift. Something was coming for me. The lights above glittered in soft gold, reflecting off the hundreds of sequins stitched into my navy blue sari, but I felt none of the warmth the scene seemed to promise. My parents were already making their rounds, my mother's chirpy laughter bubbling across the room like a cruel reminder of a childhood long buried, my father's stiff shoulders softened only by the prospect of showing off our family's achievements. Every few minutes, I would catch someone glancing at me with a half-confused, half-pitying smile. It wasn't hard to guess what rumor my parents had already unleashed, because they'd used it so many times in private that it was practically a family inside joke. My imaginary fiancé. The one they didn't believe existed. The one they told relatives I had crafted out of desperation. The one they laughed about as if I were a child still clinging to invisible friends. The one who, according to them, was proof of my failure as a daughter. Only I wasn't the one who had lied. I placed the champagne flute on the table beside me when my mother approached. Her expression stretched into the polite smile she reserved for social events. Behind her, my father followed like a supporting actor used to sharing scenes with a larger, louder co-star. "Darling," my mother began, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Auntie Prema was just asking about your boy. What's his name?" Arjun. "Oh, forgive me, I keep forgetting." The teasing tone was mild, but her eyes, sharp, probing, told a different story. I met her gaze evenly. "His name is Amon." My father snorted before he could stop himself. "Right. Amen. The mysterious man no one has ever seen. The one who never attends family functions. The one who always has some emergency, some business trip, some convenient excuse." The words weren't new, yet each one pierced the fragile surface of my composure. I had spent years learning not to flinch. "He's real," I said softly, firmly. "And he's coming tonight." My mother burst into laughter, the kind that demanded witnesses. She tilted her head back dramatically, attracting the eyes of everyone around. "Of course he is, sweetheart. And maybe next week, he'll join us for dinner with the Prime Minister." Couple of family friends chuckled. Someone muttered, "Poor girl." Their sympathy slapped me harder than their disbelief. I glanced toward the entrance again. He was coming. I had asked him to. No, begged him to. Because tonight was the last night I would allow myself to be humiliated by the people who claimed to love me. My parents drifted away to greet more guests, leaving me standing alone, battling the familiar ache in my chest. It wasn't the engagement party that pulled at my emotions, it was everything that had brought me here. The months of silence after I lost my job, the nights sleeping in my small rented room because going home felt like surrender, the one relationship I had allowed myself to trust quietly unraveling in my hands. Armand and I had met during the darkest period of my life. He wasn't perfect, far from it. He was brooding, temperamental, secretive in ways that sometimes scared me. But he was also the only person who ever saw my brokenness and didn't treat it like something shameful. He had saved me. Once literally, twice emotionally, always unexpectedly. But our relationship, tangled with complications and history he refused to fully explain, had become a labyrinth I wasn't sure I could escape. And yet I needed him tonight. I checked my phone again. No messages. A knot tightened in my stomach. From across the room, my aunt approached and gave me a sympathetic smile. "Beta, don't worry. Whoever you choose will be wonderful. But perhaps next time you shouldn't make up stories. Your parents get embarrassed, you know." I swallowed the burn of humiliation rising in my throat. "I didn't make anything up," I whispered. She patted my arm like one would comfort a child after a nightmare. "It's okay, dear. We all go through lonely phases." I forced a smile. "I'm not lonely." But even as I said it, the lie throbbed behind my ribs. The band on stage began tuning their instruments, filling the room with discordant notes. People gathered closer to the dance floor, excitement rising as the announcer prepared to invite Nisha and her fiancé onto the stage. I slipped out onto the terrace for air. The night breeze washed over me, cool and steady. Mumbai's skyline stretched ahead, glittering towers, pulsing lights, honking traffic in the distance like a restless heartbeat. I leaned against the railing, closing my eyes. "You're coming, right?" I had asked him earlier. There had been a long silence before he responded. His voice rough, almost hesitant. "If I show up tonight, everything will change." I didn't understand, but I said yes anyway. 'Cause I was tired. Tired of being mocked. Tired of carrying secrets alone. Tired of being strong in the dark and fragile in the light. The sound of footsteps behind me snapped me out of my thoughts. Turn. My father stepped out, rubbing his hands together against the cold. "Your mother says you've disappeared again." His tone was soft, which somehow made it worse. "Look, Beta, we worry. You've gone through a lot. Losing your job was hard. That man you claimed to be seeing. We thought maybe you'd made him up to cope with." "I didn't," I said sharply. He sighed. "Then where is he?" I opened my mouth, but the answer died on my tongue when I saw something over my father's shoulder. A black car had pulled up at the entrance of the hotel. The driver stepped out first. And then the passenger door opened. A tall silhouette emerged slowly, confidently. Broad shoulders, familiar stride, dark suit catching the faint light. My breath caught. My father followed my gaze. The silhouette paused at the staircase leading up to the terrace, then lifted his face just enough for the lights to reveal him. He was here. My father's eyes widened. And then, Armand's gaze locked with mine, holding an intensity one hadn't seen in months. He started walking toward me. But something was wrong. His jaw was tense. His steps were too deliberate. His expression carried the weight of a storm. And as the door swung open behind him, 2 more men stepped out of the shadows. That was when I realized Armand wasn't just arriving. He was bringing danger with him. For a moment, time stretched like a thin thread ready to snap. The cold air tightened around me as Armand climbed the terrace steps, each footfall deliberate, echoing like a warning. My father stiffened beside me, instinctively sensing danger, though he didn't yet understand the magnitude of what was unfolding. Armand stopped in front of us, his expression unreadable except for the storm buried behind his eyes. He looked at me, not at my father, not at the glittering party behind us, but directly at me, with a kind of urgency I had only seen once before, the night he first saved my life. "Hello, sir," he said quietly, politely, though the tension beneath his voice was unmistakable. He extended his hand to my father. "I'm Armand." My father stared at him as if trying to decide whether this man was real or an elaborate hallucination crafted by guilt. "So," my father muttered, taking the handshake slowly, "you actually exist." Armand didn't smile. "I do." My father let go, slightly startled by the firmness of Armand's grip. Before he could say anything else, I stepped forward. "You're late," I whispered. "I know." His voice was low, apologetic, but there was something else there too. Something darker. "I came as fast as I could." The door behind us creaked again. I turned just enough to see the 2 men who had followed him, both dressed in sharp black suits, both scanning the area like security personnel. Except they weren't from any agency I recognized. Their eyes were cold, alert, wired for trouble. My pulse quickened. "Who are they?" "Not here," Armand said quickly. "We need to talk somewhere private." My stomach clenched. Because for Armand, private never meant romantic. Meant dangerous. My father noticed the shift. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, trying to sound authoritative. Armand hesitated, then said, "Nothing I want to discuss in front of 100 people." That answer did not comfort my father. Before either of us could respond, the sound of laughter drifted from inside. My mother and half the family had stepped onto the terrace, their smiles freezing when they saw Armand standing beside me like a ghost materializing out of thin air. My mother's jaw dropped. Oh my God. Whispers exploded around us. That's him. He's real. He actually came. Who is he? He looks intense. Nisha's fiancé, still holding a tray of dessert spoons, murmured under his breath. He looks like he walked out of a crime thriller. My mother blinked rapidly, unable to decide between pride and panic. Well, welcome, Beta, she managed, though the tremor in her voice gave her away. Armand nodded politely, but his eyes were scanning the perimeter. Those two men, his shadows, lingered near the door, their presence threatening to swallow the joy of the event whole. What's going on? I whispered urgently. Armand leaned in, breath brushing my ear. We're not safe here. Cold chills swept across my spine. I felt my mother's eyes boring into us, hungry for an explanation, desperate to understand why her daughter's secretive, imaginary fiancé had arrived flanked by men who looked like they broke bones for a living. But before she could ask, the lights in the hall flickered. Just for a second, but enough to make Armand freeze. His hand immediately found mine, gripping tightly. We need to leave. Now. I glanced toward the hall. Everything looked normal. The music resumed, guests clapped, someone let out a cheer for the engagement announcement. The world continued to spin, unaware of the danger tightening around us. But Armand wasn't someone who panicked easily. If he was afraid, I knew it meant something was horribly wrong. Armand, I whispered. What did you do? He shook his head. Later. I'll explain later. For now. A sudden shout erupted from downstairs. Everyone on the terrace turned toward the source of the noise. I stepped closer to the railing and saw hotel security arguing with a group of men at the entrance. The men weren't dressed like guests. No festive attire, no gifts, no cheerful expressions. Instead, they looked like they had walked off a battlefield. Stern faces, broad frames, tension radiating off them like heat. My stomach plummeted. Armand's grip tightened around my wrist. Too late, he muttered. They found me. Before I could understand what he meant, one of the men below looked up, directly at us. Directly at him. And then he shouted. There. He's here. Chaos ignited instantly. My mother gasped. My father grabbed my arm. Guests backed away in confusion, murmuring in rising panic. One of Armand's men immediately stepped in front of us, shielding us with his body. Sir, he said urgently, we need to move. I didn't understand any of it. Who were these men? Why were they after Armand? What had he dragged into my family's celebration? But I didn't have time for answers. Because in the next heartbeat, those men started pushing past hotel security, charging up the stairs toward the terrace. My father stammered. What is happening? Armand finally turned to my parents, voice sharp and urgent. I'm sorry you're finding out this way. But I need to take your daughter somewhere safe. My mother's face lost all color. Safe from what? Armand looked at me then. And in that look I saw the truth. This wasn't new. This wasn't sudden. This was something he had been running from long before he met me. And tonight it had caught up. It's me they want, Armand said. But they will use her to get to me. The realization hit me so hard I stumbled. So that was why he had hesitated earlier. That was why he had warned me that everything would change if he came. He wasn't here to save me from humiliation. He was here to protect me from danger he had been hiding. My mother clutched her chest. Protect her. From what? Who are these people? Armand opened his mouth. Bang. A loud crash erupted from the staircase as the intruders broke through the final barrier. Screams filled the terrace. Move! Armand snapped, pulling me behind him as his men formed a protective wall. My father tried to grab my hand, but Armand pushed me behind one of his guards. Trust me. Armand shouted over the chaos. Trust him. The question ricocheted through my mind. Could I? Before I could decide, one of the intruders yelled, pointing directly at me. There. Grab the girl. The boss wants her alive. I stabbed through my lungs. They weren't here just for him. They wanted me. Armand swore under his breath and grabbed my waist, pulling me toward the emergency exit at the far end of the terrace. My mother screamed my name. My father tried to stop the intruders and was shoved violently aside. My world spun into flashes of terror, noise, movement, like a film reel unraveling too fast to comprehend. Armand pushed open the door and practically dragged me inside. He slammed it shut behind us. Then he leaned against it, breathing hard, eyes burning with a mixture of fear and fury. "I'm sorry," he whispered. But before I could respond, before I could ask the avalanche of questions burning through me, a fist pounded against the other side of the door. Hard. Relentless. Getting closer to breaking through. Armand's eyes shot to mine. And I knew. The worst part of the night wasn't behind us. It was just beginning. The pounding on the other side of the metal door grew harder, faster, more desperate. Each blow vibrated through the narrow stairwell, sending shivers up my spine. Armand pressed his palm flat against the door as if sheer will alone could hold it shut, his chest rising and falling in sharp, heavy breaths. "Armand," I whispered, voice trembling. "What do they want with me?" He didn't answer immediately. His eyes flicked upward, scanning the dim stairwell as if calculating every escape route, every angle, every risk. His silence terrified me more than the attackers. Finally, his jaw tightened. "They want leverage." "Leverage," echoed. "Against me." A fresh wave of fear surged through me. "Why? Who are they?" He grabbed my arm, not harshly but with a fierce urgency. "We don't have time for the whole truth right now. We need to move. If they break through that door, they won't think twice before." Crunch. The top hinge warped with a metallic scream. My heart jumped into my throat. Armand swore under his breath, grabbed my hand, and pulled me down the stairwell. We descended fast, the echo of our footsteps swallowed by the constant pounding behind us. "Armand," I gasped between steps. "Tell me the truth. I deserve to know." "I'll tell you," he said, tightening his grip. "I'll tell you everything. But not while you're in their line of fire." We burst through another door into a service corridor. The hallway was cold, smelling faintly of detergent and concrete. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead like hesitant fireflies. Armand pushed me against the wall and looked directly into my eyes. His own filled with raw fear, guilt, and something so unguarded it nearly broke me. "I'm not who you think I am," he said. "I figured that out about 20 minutes ago," I whispered shakily. A faint, humorless smile flashed across his lips, gone almost instantly. "I used to work for a private intelligence group. Not government. Not exactly legal either. We did things the authorities couldn't, or wouldn't touch. Surveillance. Extraction. Interrogation. Sometimes worse." My breath hitched. The pounding above stopped. Too suddenly. As if the intruders had realized they didn't need the door anymore, because there were other ways down. Armand continued, voice low and urgent. "Months ago I found out the leader of our group, Custody, was planning something big, something violent. I tried to expose him. I stole evidence. Enough to take down the whole organization. And they want it back," I whispered. "They want me," he said. "And anyone close to me becomes a target." The realization slammed into me like a punch. "That's why you kept me a secret," I said softly. "Why you wouldn't commit. Why you disappeared for weeks without explanation." "Yes." His eyes glistened with something like anguish. "I was trying to protect you. I thought distancing myself would keep you safe. But tonight, the moment you asked me to come, you came anyway." He swallowed hard. "Yes." For the first time that night, warmth bloomed somewhere in my chest. Small, fragile, but real. Before either of us could speak again, the sound of boots thundered down the stairs. They had found us. "Run," Armand breathed. We sprinted down the corridor, turning sharp corners, the fluorescent lights stuttering above like they, too, were panicking. But the men behind us were fast. And getting closer. We burst into the hotel loading bay, a wide open space behind the banquet hall where staff moved crates and supplies. Except tonight it was deserted. The silence was a warning all by itself. Armand's men appeared from behind a column, faces grim. "Sir, we have a car waiting," one said. "But they're blocking the main route." Armand nodded once. "Then we don't take the main route." The men hesitated. "Sir, that's a risk," Armand finished. "I know. But we're out of time." I turned toward the hall behind us, just in time to see shadows emerging from the corridor, moving quickly, weapons glinting in their hands. Froze. Armand grabbed my shoulders. "Look at me." But I couldn't tear my eyes away from the men advancing like predators closing in on prey. "Look at me," he repeated, voice firm but gentle. I forced my gaze to meet his. "I will not let them touch you," he said. "Do you trust me?" The question cut through the terror. Despite everything, his secrets, his darkness, the danger around us, one truth remained undeniable. He had come when I needed him. He had faced humiliation, risk, and death just to stand beside me. He had chosen me. "Yes," I whispered. "I trust you." Relief flickered in his eyes. His men formed a protective triangle around us as we sprinted toward a side exit. The door burst open into the night, revealing a small alley between two buildings. A black SUV idled at the end, engine running. But the moment we stepped outside, gunshots cracked through the air. Screams exploded behind us. One of Armand's men shoved me to the ground, shielding me with his body. The other returned fire. The alley lit up with bursts of muzzle flash. Armand dragged me behind a stack of crates, breathing hard. "Stay low." I crouched beside him, shaking. Bullets pinged off metal around us. One struck the pavement inches away, sending shards of concrete flying. Armand touched the earpiece in his right ear. "We need the car closer. Now." A voice crackled back. "I'm boxed in. They have two vehicles cutting off the alley." Armand cursed. Another bullet whizzed past, grazing his sleeve. Terror sliced through me. "Armand." "I'm fine," he said. But his breathing was uneven. The attackers were closing in, two from the left, one from the right, others climbing down from the banquet hall windows above. We were surrounded. This was it. This was how it ended. Armand looked at me then, really looked at me, as if memorizing my face. "I never wanted you in this," he whispered. "Then why come?" I whispered back. His chest rose with a heavy breath. "Because I couldn't stay away anymore." I felt tears burn behind my eyes. But before I could respond, a new voice echoed through the alley. "That's enough." A single figure stepped forward from the shadows. Dressed in a dark gray suit that looked obscenely pristine for a battlefield. He didn't need to introduce himself. I knew instantly. History. His eyes were cold, intelligent, and cruelly amused. "Armand," he said almost fondly. "You always were sentimental." Armand stood slowly, pulling me up with him, shielding me with his body. "What do you want?" he growled. Custody smiled slightly. "The evidence you stole. And the girl." The world tilted. "No," Armand said. "You're not touching her." "Oh." Custody tilted his head. "You think you can stop me?" Armand's fingers tightened around mine. Custody lifted a hand. His men cocked their weapons. Armand's men raised theirs. The alley held its breath. I felt the moment again, the delicate second before everything changes. And then Custody said, "Choose, Armand. Evidence. Or the girl." Armand froze. My heart stopped, because for the first time that night I saw it. He didn't know which choice would save me, or kill us both.